Thank you so much for joining us. Over the past 2 months, I've gotten a lot of questions from parents and for students about how this coronavirus pandemic is going to affect them applying to college this summer and this fall. A lot of questions like last 3 SATs were canceled. How do I stay prepared? Questions like how do I make a school list when I can't visit colleges now due to quarantine? Here to help me answer all of those questions is Linda Hollenback. Linda is a college coach extraordinaire. She is the founder of Hollenback Consulting LLC, which she started in 2015 to help families navigate the college admissions process. She has more than a decade of experience as a college administrator, including at her alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania. She's worked with hundreds of high school students all across the world to help them gain admission to top universities such as Harvard, Emory, Vanderbilt, Wash U in St. Louis, and UC-Berkeley. She holds a bachelor's degree from Boston University and a master's in higher education management from the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for joining us, Linda.
Andre, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here tonight, and I hope that the conversation we have will help us and help the families that we both work with to navigate this very uncertain time.
Absolutely. So I guess the first question I have for you, and probably the biggest question that students and parents have right now is there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety about the process of applying to college. What do you think are the key points that students should keep in mind?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need to remember that they're not alone, that this anxiety, frustration, disappointment, all the things that they're feeling right now is normal, is natural, and it is shared not only by their classmates at their school, but literally by the entire global class of 2021 or 2022. And because of this, colleges are the ones that really need to adapt and be flexible, that they understand and they know that globally we're dealing with a pandemic. And so classes, may be different, or grading systems may have changed, or standardized testing was canceled, your activities. And so colleges are going to have to be flexible and adapt, and they already know that and are making that aware, making families aware that they understand that. And so go ahead.
Is college admissions going to get easier?
I would say the answer to that is no. It's not going to be less competitive. It's not going to be easier. But what remains the same, what is change, is that there's this holistic process that they really are looking at you as a whole person, as a scholar, as a community member. And so because of that holistic process, there's a lot of opportunity, despite in spite of this change and this uncertainty, to leverage in different ways than maybe you would have initially.
So when you say opportunity, what exactly? So when you say, sorry, my mic cut out there for a sec. When you say opportunity, what types of opportunities are you referring to?
So I think there's an opportunity for you to tell your story in a little bit different way than you might have had your year been a traditional year. This has given you some time that you've faced some different adversities, challenges within your family. Maybe it's given you a little bit more time to reflect on what it is that's important to you and what you're looking for, and how you learn as a student because of having to do it in a more independent fashion. And so in taking some time to think about those things, you'll have opportunity to present that story to the colleges in a new way. I think there's also opportunity to think about your activities in a new way. Some schools, the clubs stopped. So if you were a club leader and your club stopped, well, you've got some challenges there. But then what did you do with your time now that you didn't have those clubs? Or maybe your school did allow for clubs to meet, or even unofficially you were keeping your club connected, building community, and helping to keep your fellow classmates engaged and feeling part of a community. That's a really great story that you can tell and share in your college application.
So I love this actually because when we were talking earlier, you gave me some great ideas about about things students could do now that maybe shadowing opportunities at hospitals are out of the picture, out of the question. Maybe now that the internship that they had lined up might have fallen through. Can you talk maybe a little more about some of those unique
Sure,
opportunities that we were
absolutely.
talking about earlier?
Absolutely. So I think there's a lot of great opportunity. Yes, a lot of summer programs and internships were canceled, but that still leaves the door wide open for a whole host of other ways that you can grow and expand. The point of activities is not just to have a list for the sake of the list. The point of extracurricular activities is to show the colleges who you are as a person, what do you enjoy doing, what are your passions, what are your interests, what are your goals, and how do you contribute to a community and make impact. And so through this period where things, the activities that you had planned have fallen through, it gives you an opportunity to seek out other, new and different and creative opportunities. If your summer classes, for example, were canceled and you can't go to that in-person class, are there online classes that you could take, whether officially through a college or a university or using platforms like Coursera and edX? In terms of internships, there are tons of small local businesses and nonprofits that really were hurt by the shutdowns. And so is there an opportunity for you to grow in an area of your interest and support a cause that you care about by reaching out and saying, hey, how can I help, even virtually? For example, if you're interested in business or interested in marketing or communications, reaching out to that local nonprofit. Maybe you have a love of children or a love of pets, find a nonprofit that aligns to that interest and reach out to their business office or their marketing and communications team and say, hey, can I help? Can I help with their social media? So there are a lot of great ways that you can build those skills, get that experience, and do something good for your community during this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are tons of small businesses out there right now that are struggling and that would love to have a really ambitious teenager reach out to them and say, hey, how can I help? I would love to help. I don't have a lot of skills, but I'm willing to learn. I'm really interested in this field. Free labor. I think there are a lot of small businesses that would jump at the opportunity to have that kind of support. And, with a lot of businesses now, you see like there's social media influencers that they'll find on Instagram, like teenagers, because they're trying to market to teenagers. So, they could be looking for that kind of help. So I thought that was a really, really great suggestion that you had earlier. And I think it's also a great point, what we were talking about before, how it's important to build connections, right? And so we talk about building connections now with maybe a small business owner who might not need your help now, but 5, 10 years down the line, their business might be growing, might be doing better, and now they have the opportunity to give you an internship or to give you a job, and they remember that you reached out during that crucial time. So can you tell me a little bit about building connections in the context of the college admissions process? Because I know students can still do that as well, correct?
Sure. And I think this becomes, this has always been important in the admissions process, but it has become crucial now when students and families maybe can't visit. Official college tours on campus are canceled. Traveling to campuses is harder, or if not impossible right now.
Right.
And so it's building the relationships that really can make the difference. It's reaching out to the admissions office and trying to schedule a one-on-one to learn about their campus since you can't visit. It's maybe reaching out to the department that you're interested in to say, hey, I'm a potential, looking to be a chemical engineer. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your department, your program, your research lab. Those are the things that help to build those relationships as well as allow you to explore the campus in a more meaningful way.
But what if a student's applying to a big school like Penn State and, all they care about is test scores, right? I mean, does it even matter that a student might reach out to the admissions office?
Absolutely. Every single interaction that you make with that school gets tracked, added to your file. Even if they don't officially count demonstrated interest as part of the application process, it's my belief, we're humans, and a human is going to be reading your application, and a human, it's a very human thing. They're trying to see if you're going to be a good fit for their community. And so it's important, that relationship. If I've got two applicants
Right.
who test score wise are the same, grade wise are basically the same, courses that they've taken are basically the same, they're interested in the same major, and there's not really much distinguishing between them. They're two great candidates. What's going to be that thing that might push one over the edge? If I've had a really great conversation with them from a human side, I'm more likely to go with somebody that I know and have that connection with.
That's huge. I mean, even when a student, and I think these are great skills for students to learn even after college, right? When you're applying to a job, it's after your interview, sending a letter to the receptionist saying, hey, thank you so much for taking care of us. I really appreciate it. Those little things do show interest and really push you, will push you over the edge sometimes to make the difference between getting the job or not getting the job, getting the internship or not getting it. So, yeah, I mean, that's huge. I know I told you this, but when I was in high school, there were schools that I applied just for the sake of the prestige of, oh, well, let me see if I get in. I didn't go to the campus. I didn't visit them. I didn't do an overnight stay. I didn't send any emails to admissions counselors. So they knew I didn't really care, and that hurt me in the long run. So that's a really great tip that you had.
As I said, I wish these were tips that someone would have given me when I was applying.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So okay, so you have a student and they know how to build the connections now with people in their community to try and strengthen their application. They are sending messages out to admissions counselors. And also, can you just make a quick distinction between what a good question versus a bad question would be for a student to ask an admissions counselor?
Sure. The former teacher in me likes to say there's no such thing as a bad question, but there are definitely better questions. So I would say that, a kind of a less good question, a bad question would be, dear admissions officer, does your school offer study abroad? That's not a great question, because that's a question you can easily answer by typing in, not even onto the school's website, but just Google, my alma mater, Boston University plus study abroad. You're going to get an answer to that question. The better question is going to be something that's more personal to you. So I see that you offer an internship program in London. I'm intending to be a finance major. Can you give me some examples of some of the internships and the corporate partnerships you have during that internship program in London? Where have recent students been placed? It's a much better question. It's a deeper question, and it's going to give you better information in terms of making sure that their program and what they offer is the best fit for you.
Wow. So actually showing them that you looked at the website could work in your favor.
Yeah, that also helps.
Surprise.
To show that you really have interest in the school.
100%, right? So then, okay, so you have the student building these relationships. I know a lot of juniors planned to take this time in spring and summer and really narrow down their school list, visit some schools, do some road trips. That's been a little more difficult now with the travel situation, with some campuses, which I know have closed down. How can students start to maybe refine their list?
So I think the key is to think about balancing your list. You want to make sure that you're realistic based on kind of the courses that you've taken, the level of rigor of your transcript, your curriculum, your test scores if you have them, and if you're going to be able to submit them, which I hope we will. We'll talk a little bit about that, I hope, in a few minutes. But the test scores, your extracurriculars, you want to be realistic. You want to make sure that you do stretch yourself, put in some dream schools, but also make sure you balance the list with some, really solid target schools, as well as likely or safety is kind of the other term people use for them. So you want to have a balanced list. You want to, as I mentioned earlier, start building those relationships to help you refine that list, making sure that the things that are important to you, the values that you have, the programs that you're looking for, special opportunities exist at each school that you're going to apply to. And so making sure you're reaching out and having those conversations to get that information. Maybe asking to be connected with a student in the major that you're thinking about, or possibly reaching out to your own high school, your school-based counselor to say, do we have any recent grads who attended X? So you could ask them about their experience. there are a lot of different ways that you can kind of build the relationship, but also get that knowledge that you need in order to make the right decision and help you to narrow down. The other thing I would say is, since big travel is probably not in the cards right now, start by looking at the schools that are in your geographic area. And even if you're not necessarily going to apply to that school, take a look, go walk around with the families, safety, put your mask on, and go walk around what an urban campus is like, a big school versus a small school, a rural, so you can get a sense of the feel that you're looking for, because that will also help you to narrow it down. You may think that a particular, urban school sounds really exciting and that's your dream school, but then when you get there and realize that there's not much green space, may kind of say, that might not be the right fit for me. And you don't know until you've stepped foot. So if you can leverage your local area to just see different types of campuses, that might help inform, even if you're going to apply to something farther away.
I hate to think how many students have gone to a school without actually ever visiting it, and then show up there and realize, oh, I hate this. I'm out in the country and I wanted to be in the city, or vice versa.
I mean, honestly,
I'm sure that's not the majority, but
honestly, that's the exact scenario that inspired me to do what I do now. My whole career had been in higher education, and I had been an academic advisor. And the most heartbreaking thing for me was a student who was in a great university, great program, but would come into my office and have the realization after the fact, after they arrived, that it wasn't the right fit, and having to, help them make that transfer and make that, because if you're not in an environment that really nurtures you and fits your learning preferences and environmental preferences, it's hard to thrive when you're not happy. So
sure.
Making smart choices about your college list is really important.
Yeah, that's huge. It's a big decision. So I know that when you work with students, you help them narrow down their school list. You help them decide on what major they want to study, and ultimately what career they're working towards. Or even if they're not sure about any of those things, you help give them clarity. But we do testing. So my question to you is, what kinds of questions have you gotten from your parents and your students about the SAT and ACT in the face of this?
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity, because this is why I reached out to you to begin with. We definitely are getting questions, or I'm getting questions asking, one, if you have prepared for the SAT, you were planning to take it in March and it was canceled, and then you signed up again in May and it was canceled. Now, one, is it going to happen in the fall? And even if it is going to happen, how do you maintain that preparation and that energy when you've been working so hard for that, we're ready to take it, and it was kind of pulled out from under you?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's huge in terms of the number of students who have started prepping for the SAT or ACT back in August. Some of them, for some of them, the March and April tests were supposed to be like the last test that they were ever going to take. And so some students have been prepping for almost a year, and that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. I love test prep, but I don't love it that much, and I feel a lot of sympathy for these students. Here's the first thing students need to keep in mind. You can't prep with the same intensity that you were going to prep 3 months for a whole year. I mean, you're just going to burn yourself out, and it's not practical. Right now, SAT, College Board has said that the August SAT is going to happen regardless of whether students are in school or out of school. In the case they're out of school, College Board says they're going to have an online test to administer, just like they did the AP test this past year. ACT is even trying to move forward with their June test, and there are some makeup dates in there. So the tests are going to happen, and I'm confident that by the fall we're going to have consistent test dates, and we're prepping a lot of students for the for the August SAT. What can a student do to stay in test prep mode so they don't lose the progress they've made already? 10 to 15 minutes a day. Take flashcards. And if you don't have flashcards from test prep, go to your notebook that you worked with, if you worked with a tutor, and get down, the most important strategies and concepts that you went over. put each one on a flashcard and do 10 to 15 minutes review of math equations, of your colon rules, your semicolons, your apostrophes. And don't try to, like I said, don't try to overwhelm yourself or go 150% every single day, but just try to do a little bit each day and ask yourself, how can I get a little better? Where am I still weak? So there's a lot of great resources out there. Khan Academy is a wonderful resource that was developed along with the College Board. So very authentic material on there. There's SAT Quizlets out there as well, where you can go and review. And as you get closer to the test date, if you're looking for a tutor, one-on-one test prep is really one of the best things that a student can do to raise their scores. But if you don't have money for one-on-one test prep, there's a lot of free resources out there. But just try to do a little bit each day, and I think that's the key. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect and to just be 100% on all the time, and it's just not realistic. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's, super helpful. The 10 or 15 minutes, that's very doable. You can kind of set a little alarm on your phone and kind of remind yourself to check in and do a couple of those flashcards. I think that's great. I
know that people with iPhones can look at how many minutes you spend on each app, Instagram and TikTok. And when you look at those numbers, 15 to 20 minutes is a very small fraction. So I know it's not that much, but it can be difficult to discipline yourself. But it just starts day by day. Don't try to do 7 days a week. Try to do 5 days a week, right? Don't beat yourself down. Oh, I didn't do test prep today. Because if you hold that standard of perfection, you're just going to get frustrated and you're going to give up. So yeah, that's huge.
I think the other big question that is coming up, especially now and with the news of the University of California system, one of the largest systems and very popular globally in terms of applicants, moving to test optional. How is that going to impact the college admissions process, and what does that mean? Does that mean if I haven't taken it in the spring, should I just not bother for the fall to even bother to register? I have my thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours as test prep.
Yeah, great question. Here are the facts. At the overwhelming majority of test optional schools, and this is even before the coronavirus pandemic, most students submit test scores with their application. Okay, so you're seeing schools like the UC system go test optional, University of Chicago go test optional. They're going test optional, but at test optional schools, especially competitive ones, the overwhelming majority, more than 75% of students, are still submitting test scores. Why? Because your test scores are another data point that colleges can use to make that determination whether you're going to be a good fit for their school. Now, I think there are some myths out there about test optional, and for anyone who hasn't read the article on our website, if you go to criticalpointprep.com, we wrote this article on our blog called The Truth About Test Optional. But I'll give you kind of the key points here. And the first point is you have to understand who is the primary beneficiary of test optional policies. And spoiler alert, it's universities. And here's why. When a university goes test optional, the number of applicants to that school increases. Students who might not have applied before say, well, maybe I have a shot, I'll apply. So applicants goes up. The number of admitted students stays the same. So that university's acceptance rate is going to go down, making them appear more selective. Next benefit they get. The students who do submit their test scores are going to submit higher test scores. So now the college's average SAT and ACT scores go up as well, making them appear more selective. So there is a huge incentive on the behalf of universities to go test optional, but it's not going to make admissions easier for the overwhelming majority of students. So I will say the exception to this rule is a student who has a tremendous academic record. A's, A+s, and honors AP classes across the board. They have phenomenal recommendations from their teachers or from leaders in their community. They have great extracurriculars. Their application is just impeccable in every other way, but they just can't get that test score, whether it's because of the cancellations or they have test anxiety. That might be a student that could benefit from these test optional policies. But the vast majority of students are going to be better off applying to schools with their scores if they have a score within the 50th percentile or above of what that college is looking for.
I agree. And I think the one other piece of the puzzle, because I can say that for my own students, I recommend that they submit their test scores as long as, you know, as you said, that they're kind of within the realm, you know, at or above what the schools typically look for. But the other important piece is that even if the college or university is test optional from an admission standpoint, in some cases, so you have to make sure you read this closely, the financial aid and merit-based scholarship does sometimes still require that standardized test score. And
Absolutely.
so you definitely want to make sure you check that, because to not take the test saying, oh, well, I'm only going to apply to test optional schools, if some of their best scholarships are based on and have that test score as part of the application for the scholarship, then you'll have missed out on an opportunity for that really great financial aid.
Absolutely. And that's actually a great point, because it's not just for merit aid. It's if you want to qualify for, let's say, a competitive program, competitive STEM major, you're going to have to submit test scores most of the time. If you want to apply to an honors college, you're going to have to submit test scores most of the time. So there definitely are those caveats to the test optional
Absolutely.
policy. So Linda, what questions? Is there anything that you think we didn't cover?
I mean, I think we covered most of the big questions. I mean, definitely from the testing standpoint. I think from the college application standpoint, as I said, it's really thinking holistically about what you're looking to achieve. I would say that the Common App, one of the kind of there is a new feature on the Common App. They have an additional supplemental, I think about 250-word essay on kind of COVID, and if you had any experiences, you know, beyond the standard, oh, my school was, was canceled and we'll move to online. But they do have an opportunity for you to share your story there. I would say that kind of where my recommendation is if there's something that's significant in your life that has happened over these few months, it's certainly okay to share that story through your essay. But your main Common App essay, you know, I'm at this point kind of steering away. The colleges don't necessarily want to only read a whole bunch of COVID-19 essays. And so if you kind of get bogged down in saying, oh, my junior year was totally derailed because of that as your main essay.
Right, yeah, you don't say.
So that would be my final pointer of the night, is that, yes, this has been a very trying time for everyone personally, professionally, in school and in life. But you also have to keep in mind that this is one small snapshot in your larger high school experience and in your life. And so we want to make sure that you bring out those other pieces and elements too in telling your story.
Yeah, that's a great point, because think about all the college admissions counselors who, and I pray for them, because that's got to be a rough job, knowing that you're going to get this wave of coronavirus essays and they all seem the same. So I think there's a huge danger in, writing a coronavirus essay, and maybe it's a great essay, but you have that college admissions counselor who's seen 1,000 of the same essay, and they see coronavirus and they just check out, and they might not even read it. So yeah.
I think, but again, it's very individualized. I mean, every student and person has had a different experience through this. And so I definitely don't want to diminish, some families have had really significant losses, whether it be, losses of loved ones or health hardship or kind of losses from an economic standpoint. And so some of those stories, do need to be told, but I think there's also make sure that you're balancing and bringing in, the other elements of your life and your story.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know we have a couple minutes. I think we'll take the next 5 minutes to see if anyone has any questions. I see here Zach Friels commented and said, "What I fear for is if College Board makes students retake the SAT because of testing errors, the same as AP exams." So that's a great concern, and there have been some questions raised about how the SAT, how College Board is really going to make sure that that this testing administration goes on flawlessly if they are doing an electronic test at home. And there are services such as ProctorU that already exist out there that provide proctoring services to really minimize on anti or to minimize on cheating or any kind of students not taking the test the way they should. So yeah, I mean that is a valid concern, and who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think you do either, Linda. But right now we'll just have to make do with what we have. So
I think that's going to be the key word: flexibility, adaptability. During this, we're all navigating these uncharted waters together, and whether it be the test prep companies, whether it be the students, whether it be the colleges, kind of being flexible and kind of watching and staying kind of informed, so we can be flexible and respond as needed.
not to go too deep here, but and if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to comment um, down below, and then we'll answer them. Not to go too deep here, but I think there's this idea that when this pandemic happened, life got put on hold. But when you really think about it, this is life. Life is made up of all the interruptions and failed expectations and ruined plans. That is life, right? Life is filled with all kinds of surprises, and we have to adapt to it. So if you can look at this situation and find the silver lining and find an opportunity to grow and learn and be better because of it, you can thrive in any situation under any circumstances. So real quick here, we have a comment from Michaela, and Michaela says, "Is there a specific age range that you recommend the topic of a college admissions essay be from? Example, if a defining moment in your life took place many years before high school, is that okay?" What do you think, Linda?
That really depends. It's hard for me to give a specific yes or no on that. I would say that you have to, if you're going to use something from far distant past, from your youth and childhood, you can kind of give the context. Part of the essay can be that story, but the majority of it has to bring the reader forward to today. It has to, because if something happened to you at age 5, it's not 5-year-old you that's going to college. It's, that 18-year-old, 17, 18, 19-year-old you. And so they want to know who you are now, and who you're going to be on their college campus. And so you have to balance that story, that moment, with how that transformed and made you who you are today.
Great advice. So Joey had a question, says, "I know there are some apps that help you prep for the SAT. Are there any good or bad ones?" And my answer to you, Joey, would be Khan Academy. I know it sounds boring. I know you've probably heard it before, but like I said, they worked with the College Board to develop this app and this platform. So if you're looking for authentic material, I would say stick with the official SAT and ACT tests. That's all we use with our students. And if you're looking for extra supplemental material, Khan Academy is pretty good. But I would say when you're using Khan Academy, make sure that you are tracking your errors. Make a spreadsheet, write down the different concept. So if you practice 25 questions and you got 5 questions wrong, what were those 5 questions that you got wrong? Capture that. Make sure you're learning from those, because you could do a billion practice problems, but if you don't stop and ask yourself, what do you need to improve, you're not going to really boost that score. All right, guys. Well, I think we're about to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us, Linda. Now, Linda, if someone wants to reach out to you to get a little more guidance on the college admissions process, how might they do so?
You can check me out online, hollenbackconsulting.com, or email me info@hollenbackconsulting.com, and I'd be happy to walk you through. I always offer a free 30 minutes where I'll actually walk through and kind of assess where you are in each element of the college application process and kind of tell you where there are opportunities for you to improve it. So happy to do that with any of the students that are listening.
That is awesome. All of our students at Critical Point Test Prep, when they ask us for college advice or essay help, we send all of them to Linda because she really is fantastic. Linda, thank you so much for joining us. I hope we get to chat soon, maybe about some other topic, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here with you.
All right, see
Thanks
ya.
everybody for watching.